So today we've got a special guest with us. As folks know, we're doing the COVID-19 series for entrepreneurs and business professionals. So happy to report that we've got Dan Holstein, who's a business coach with us today. He's going to be talking about some of the business best practices. Obviously, he's had some really good discussions. For those of you who haven't come across Dan before, he's been in this space for about 10 years. Prior to being in this space, he was an entrepreneur, so he has a great deal of valuable insight and experience. He's likely been through one of these difficult time frames as well. So further ado, Dan, want to welcome you. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be here.
So we've been doing a series, Dan, about COVID and some of the best practices. There's a lot of questions coming from entrepreneurs around what to do. As a coach, you obviously have a really good line of sight to, what people are thinking, and also, what some of the great tactics would be. So I guess to kick it off, what is your general recommendation given COVID and all the uncertainty?
Yeah, no specific general recommendation, I guess, other than keep taking action and be visible and make sure that you've got a plan. And the planning is the difficult part. Like you mentioned, there's uncertainty and there's unknowns. So I find that the business owners I'm talking to, they're really having some challenges in terms of having a vision for what's going to happen down the road a little bit. Everyone's being affected to some level, some more than others. So some business owners I'm talking to, like they're closed, like they've been mandated closed at this point. So there's not really much they can do, not legally. And others, they're just kind of in survival mode. So, and some are thriving. I mean, there's some businesses that are doing wonderful right now because they're essential services, where those that they serve are deemed essential, and therefore they are as well. And so they're able to continue. But we talked about short-term sprints, and we need to, first of all, we need to know where we're going. And that might be a 1-day plan, a 1-week plan, 2 weeks, but probably not much more than that. So kind of encouraging everyone to remember where they're going with their, the big, hairy, audacious goal is where they're going long-term, but remembering that, keeping that still present, not forgetting it and getting so, myopically looking at what's happening right now. It's interesting. Almost like people went through the stages of grief kind of thing with this whole situation that's starting, where there's shock and denial at first, and then, they're upset, then a little bit of depression and, sadness about, grieving what once, how their business was or how, life was. And I think people are getting to that stage now where they're into the problem solving and taking action. I think it's a critical thing that we have to all work through, is to make sure that we're not staying stuck. It's like, I think it was Daniel Goldman wrote a book about emotional intelligence back in the 90s, and he coined the term amygdala hijack. And the amygdala, of course, being the fight or flight response center in the brain, that when something, shocking like this happens, it gets, our amygdala gets this hijack where we could freeze, or we could just get, into complete overwhelm and anxiety. And when we're in that state, then, our prefrontal lobe, where we do our rational thinking, it's not getting the blood flow. Like we're physiologically unable to think clearly. So we need to move through that fairly quickly. And I think most people have, and they're getting back to that logical thinking at this point and able to, pull a little bit of a plan together.
It's a good point. And I guess one of the questions I had is, we were clipping along prior to this COVID-19, and obviously no one really anticipated just how significant the shutdown really was. Everyone had their business plan in place, and all of a sudden it just hit us. So with respect to people who have business plans in place, are you finding that you're sitting down with folks now and trying to help create a short-term plan, or what are some of the conversations you're having with clients?
Yeah, a lot of it is short-term planning, making sure that they can identify what their unknowns are, and to the best that they can get them known. I'm a bit of an aviation geek, so I'd like to use, aviation analogies where I can. And sort of, I look at this COVID as a bit of a diversion, right? So you're flying from one airport to the next, and for whatever reason you're unable to land there. It could be weather or some other situation, but you just can't go there anymore. And that's kind of like the goals that everybody had. They're trucking along and looking forward to achieving certain things and on the path, but all of a sudden it's like, no, you cannot go there anymore. So what do we do? Well, in the aviation world, you do what's called a diversion. You have to determine where are you now, what are your resources, and then where are you going to go, and how long it's going to take you to get there. And do you have the resources to get there, or do you need to find somewhere closer? And that's kind of what I've been relating to my clients and the other business owners I'm speaking with is, okay, let's identify what do we have? What are all the resources we have at our disposal right now in terms of, are we able to trade? Like, are we able to do business? If so, great. How much cash have we got in the bank? What do we have available to us in terms of additional funding should we need it? Encouraging people to cash up. If there's a loan that you can get from the government, get it. Even if you don't need it, you've better to be looking at it than looking for it. And so determine what are the resources we've got right now, and then what are the things that we do know for sure. Right? I think sometimes when we get anxious, we could forget about the resources that we actually have, and we just focus on the negative that's happening. So again, people think about what do we actually have in terms of staffing, in terms of supply chain, in terms of cash flow and availability to get cash. And then what are the things that we don't know? Well, we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen with our customers. So try to get them to identify the things that they don't know, and then determine what are the most important things that if we could get them known, how are they going to help us make decisions? So the things that are keeping us stuck, we do the best that we can to determine if we can get them known, or at least get an approximation or ballpark of what we think might happen. So we've got something to go on, so we can actually take some action and plan for the short term.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, really, I guess the key piece of advice that I'm hearing is the last thing you want to do is freeze, sit on your hands, and not adapt and adjust. And at the end of the day, there are resources available. There are folks who have gone through this before and can provide some guidance. But as a business owner, we probably want to weather the storm, revise our plan short and long term, and just take it day by day, but keep our eyes wide open. Would you say that's fairly accurate?
Yeah, I would, Jim. And remembering as well to one of the most important things I think right now is cash flow. So making sure that whatever the state of your business is, you've got as much cash as you can, and you're being careful with it. You're actually watching it. You understand what your break even is as it sits now, which might be different than what it was 6 weeks ago. And you know what your cash burn rate is each day, you know how much you've got in the bank, and forecasting what you think is going to come in, whether that's accounts receivable that you haven't collected yet, or if you're able to do some business when you're going to get paid for those products or services, and just keep an eye on that, and keep an eye on, are we growing our cash, are we staying fairly neutral, or are we dropping or are we going negative with our cash flow? And if it is negative, then forecast out like how long can you go negative before you're out, so you can make some decisions based on that. And getting people to obviously guiding business owners to cut where they can, but not cut resources. Like if you've got a great team member, if you can keep them, because when the recovery happens, you don't want to have to go and restaff, right? If you've got some great players, you want to do everything you can to hang on to those great players so that they're there with you for the recovery.
So there's a bit of a short-term planning where you want to make sure you're not going to run out of cash, but at the same point in time, get ready for the rebound and ensure that you've got the resources when things bounce back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that we could cut off our nose to spite our face in this instance, because it could be easy to cut everything, but then when it is time for recovery, what are you going to do if you haven't got your great staff? And I mean, taking care of your suppliers too. I speak with a business owner today that they actually some of their suppliers are actually shut down, so even if they got business, they wouldn't be able to do it. So they've got supply chain challenges. But for those of us that don't, let's look after those suppliers. Let's get them paid. We need those suppliers for when we rebound as well. So we have to make sure that we're taking care of them as a stakeholder, taking care of our team, and taking care of our clients as well. Just making sure that, and the other thing is communication. Communicate with suppliers, let them know what you're doing. If you do need to extend payables, have that conversation, see if you can to help preserve some of your cash flow. Talk to your clients about if they can, if they're on 60 days, can you get them on 30? Can you get them on 2%, 10 days, or net 30? Can you tighten up your receivable cycle as well? And talking to your team, even if there's nothing new, let them know every day. It's like, hey guys, it's the same as it was yesterday. keep going the way we are. If there's going to be a change, we'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll constantly be updating. People are, everyone gets into fear mode in a time like this. And I think that if we can communicate effectively with our team, with our suppliers, with our clients, and let them know, where we are and relative to them, I think that helps remove some of that fear.
Makes a lot of sense. Dan, thank you very much for joining us on behalf of Portage. Thanks for being part of our COVID-19 series. Have yourself a good day, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
Take care.